today I'd like to go over some tips on how to adjust your pinion to your spur gear. So to start off, I know some people have some issues with the spur gear and the pinion gear. Either you're making it too tight or you're making it too loose, which if making it too tight can sharpen and bevel out your pinion gear, and also messing up your spur gear at the same time. So I'll be going over that today, along with how to position and tricks that I've learned along the way, putting the pinion on to the motor and setting it right to the pinion. So the first thing I want to go over is if you've never put a pinion gear on and you want to put a pinion gear on that is different from the stock one that you've got on your RC car, you're going to want to get a medium grade Loctite, and you don't want to use strong stuff, only because it'll be really hard to get out once you put it in. So you're going to want to go with the blue stuff, which is the medium grade. You could also pick up some Loctite from your local hobby store. They should have some to put onto the set screw when putting it onto your motor. Now, to go over some of the tips and tricks that you can use when adjusting your pinion or for a new pinion. So a couple examples I have here is you can use a piece of paper. Oh, sorry, I dropped my paper. So what you want to do is you want to take your paper and put it in between your pinion gear and your spur gear. So when adjusting, you'll have your two adjuster screws and it will look exactly like this. I don't know if you guys can see that. What you need to get is just a regular piece of paper, like printer paper. You can fold it if you want. I would recommend, I usually fold mine. And what you're looking for is when you've tightened it up and you've span it out by moving your wheels, you'll get a nice position on the pinion gear and the spur gear. What you're looking for is a nice gap in there where it's got some play. So you'll be looking at, if it's like this, it's too tight. What you're looking for is a nice space in between where it sits like that. So you got a little bit of play in between, but it still grabs. This you do not want. What happens is it ends up curving the top of your pinion gear teeth, and that is really, really bad. They'll start to curve over time, like that, going towards the pinion gear if it's too tight, and your car won't flow as freely as you want it to. So what you're looking for when you have adjusted it, grab my paper here because I keep dropping it, is you're going to want to have a nice smooth look on the paper. So you're going to look for something like that. You don't want it to be ripped. It's okay if a couple teeth have gone through the paper, that's fine. Overall, that is an acceptable depth between the pinion and the spur gear. What you don't want is when you run the piece of paper through your spur gear and you end up with a lot of ripping. That is a very unacceptable way to set it. That means it is too tight and it's splicing the paper. So again, good, hardly no rips, nice smooth even push through on the pinion and the spur. Bad where it rips and cuts through the paper. You do not want that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pinion on my Typhoon 6S, and I'll explain what you guys need to do and where you need to put the paper. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you have these screws right here loose. You don't want them to be too tight. Let me get a closer view on that. So you don't want them to be too tight and you don't want them to be too loose. You want them to be tight enough where you can move the motor itself back and forth so you can adjust. So you want to just loosen those up a little bit, making sure that your pinion gear is already set onto your spur gear. So what you want to do when you're setting it is you want to go ahead and grab your piece of paper that you are using, and you're going to want to put it in just like that. And you're going to want to turn your tires until it sucks in the paper. I'm just going to try and do it here. Let's see if I can get it to go. You can either spin it with the tires or spin it yourself. So you see how it's gone in right there. So you want it to sit in there, and you want to actually, before you put any tightness on it, you can put a piece of paper in there and you can tighten it. So you're going to make sure again that these mounting screws for the motor are loose, one on the bottom, one on the top, and you're going to want to make sure that they're loose enough where you can move the motor back and forth. And so you're going to want to stick your paper in there, and then you're going to want to move your motor towards your spur gear. Don't push it in too tight, because that will compact the paper. You just want to get it in there. So get it in there enough where you can hear the paper crunch just a little bit, and then you're going to want to tighten it. So what the paper is going to do is it's going to make it so you don't get too close to the spur gear. And it's going to stop damage from your spur gear, and it's going to stop damage happening to your pinion. So once you got the paper in there, you're going to want to go ahead and you're going to want to tighten the screws back up, and you're going to, after you tighten them, you're going to pull the piece of paper out, and you're going to check. You're going to check for continuity. You don't want any rubbing, hard grinding. It should be a smooth roll. So I'm just gonna move the camera back here. So you're gonna want a smooth roll. So pull the paper out. You're gonna want to smooth. It's not gonna get stuck. See, I can still push it. Don't worry if your diff makes that sound. That's just the motor and the magnets. What happens is when the motor turns, it causes like a little jolt into the pinion gear, where it transfers all the energy into the spur gear. So you're going to want to go ahead and just make sure that you've got a nice steady spin on it. It's not like or really hard to move. It's very light, so yeah, just can touch it and move it back, and having no issues. So you're going to want to make sure, again, you're putting the piece of paper in. Make sure your bolts are loose for your motor. Put the piece of paper in. Close up the motor. Tighten your screws. Remove the piece of paper and check how fluently your car moves. Also, a good indication is when you look at your gear. So you'll look at your gear right here, and you'll see the space in between the gear. So if I move this, you see how I got some play in there? How I just a little bit. It doesn't. It's not really tight. So I have a little bit of play in there where they touch back and forth, where it can connect with the spur gear. So you're gonna want to make sure that that is set right. Don't worry, after time, guys, you will develop the skill of knowing where it's set and how it's set. I don't use pieces of paper anymore. I can eyeball it by how far the depth, or how deep the depth is from the pinion to the spur, and knowing how much space is needed in between. I've never had an issue. I believe I did when I first started. I wrecked a couple pinions, and then slowly learned after how to set my pinion gear. So another quick thing I want to add in here is, where should you set your pinion on your spur? As you can see here, I have my pinion gear is sitting, my spur gear, is sitting in the middle of my pinion gear. And you want that to sit in the middle as much as possible. You don't want it to the front of the pinion, and you don't want it to the back of the pinion. That can cause the gears to strip because it doesn't have enough surface to grab onto. So you'll have some of the pinion gear hanging off of the spur gear. That is a bad. So you want to try and level that out, make it as even as possible in the middle of the pinion gear, and using the paper technique to get your depth correct. Some other things, let's see, what else? Any tips to give you guys on that could make it a little bit easier? It's pretty self-explanatory. Most of the cars they give you now have the motor mounts. It's just about loosening them up a little bit, putting your piece of paper in, and making sure that it is set correctly. So that is how you set your pinion gear and making sure the depth is correct without wrecking your pinion gear. If you guys have any questions, make sure to ask in the comment section. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to follow me and see some more footage. Again, I am waiting for some parts for my Arrma Typhoon 6S. In the future here, I will be getting the Italian. I will be doing an unboxing of the Italian 6S coming up here by the end of the week on Friday. I should also be getting my Typhoon parts. Make sure you stay tuned for the Typhoon versus the Jeep SRT8. I can't wait to bring that and let you guys see that. And I hope you guys follow, comment, subscribe, and like the video. If you didn't like it, put a thumbs down. And I will see you guys later.